I took the crumpled note from the box and widened my eyes in amazement. There's nothing here. It's blank. What? Ruth Ann snatched the note away from me. She stared in disbelief at the blank paper. Then she flipped it over. Oh, very funny. It's on the other side. Letty and I laughed. Ruth Ann didn't find it funny. Don't get your knickers in a knot, Ruth Ann. It's too hot for that. The note lay on the floor in the middle of us, and we stared at the 4 words, each one capitalized. Leave well enough alone. The words taunted us, dared us. We've got to come up with a plan, said Ruth Ann. Something clever and resourceful that'll shine a light on the person who wrote this note. Yeah, but what if he's someone really nasty, like James Cagney in Public Enemy, said Letty. Remember when he smashed a grapefruit in May Clark's face? Of course, in G-Men, he was on the other side of the law as Brick Davis. What do you think he'd do? He'd use his Tommy gun, and by the end, the whole town would be in jail or dead, said Ruth Ann. No, it has to be something sneakier and not so bloody. Ruth Ann turned her attention to me. What would Jinx do, Abilene? It was strange. I'd been wondering the same thing. The answer was simple. He'd come up with a fancy scheme to trick the Rattler into giving himself away. You know, a con. Like? Letty and Ruth Ann asked in unison. Well, let me think. I felt I knew Jinx well enough to put myself in his shoes. What would he do? Then I smiled. This is kind of like being a diviner. Do you have a bauble? I asked in Miss Sadie's Hungarian accent, making my voice thick and husky. Letty and Ruth Ann just stared at me in confusion. A totem or a trinket, something belonging to the person in question. I said the word question like it had a V in it. Question. Letty jumped with excitement. The note! Here, use the note. I took the paper and made a big show of smoothing out the wrinkles on the treehouse floorboards. Then I took a deep breath and pondered the note. What is it? What do you see? Asked Letty. She sees a girl who'll believe anything, Ruth Ann said, rolling her eyes. Oh, for heaven's sakes, Ruth Ann, I know she's just pretending, but I can play along, can't I? Silence! I held up my hand. These spirits are thinking. I looked intently at the note, holding it up to the light as if it would shout an answer to me. And it darn near did. Hey, I said in my regular voice. The handwriting. What about it? Ruth Ann said. I knew a lady once, Miss Leeds in Springfield, Illinois. She could tell all manner of things about people just by the way they tapped out their messages on a telegraph machine. So you can tell who the Rattler is just by looking at the handwriting, Letty said. No, but just like telegraphing is different from one person to another, handwriting is too. See here? I pointed to the note. See how those letters are straight up and down, plodding across the page? And at the end of each word, the last letter trails off like it's giving out its dying breath. Why, you're right, Letty Ann said in admiration. So we should go door to door and ask everyone to write the same words as on this note, and we'll see whose matches up, Letty Ann paused. But how are we going to get everyone to write it down? I answered before Ruth Ann could jump on her. We won't have them write these words. They'll write something else. My mind was racing. Anybody seen Billy Clanton today? He's over at the schoolyard. Sister Redemptum's got him fixing the fence he ran into on his bike. Ruth Ann perked up an eyebrow. Why? Because Hattie Mae's having a contest. She just doesn't know it yet. Hattie Mae's News Auxiliary. August 9th, 1936. To the faithful readers of Hattie Mae's News Auxiliary, first an explanation, then an announcement. Many apologies for the mix-up last week. Uncle Henry set out a stack of old newspapers from 1918 to be exact, to be stored in the shed out back, and we all know that man can't part with a penny or a paper. Anyway, Fred got the papers as far as the back door when his lumbago set in. Of course, I had to get him home to bed, even though my knees have not been so great lately. Fred's never been a silent sufferer, but for better or worse, right, ladies? Well, I guess it's asking too much for Billy Clanton to actually read the papers he delivers. I'm assuming he's got bad eyes as he hits the bushes and roof as often as the porch at our house. For those of you who thought that we were back at war with the Huns, that Woodrow Wilson was still president, and that you could buy a washing machine for $14, wake up and smell the Depression. Still, it was a hoot seeing the hats that were in fashion at the Millery. Remember the styles for men? Those stiff celluloid collars around their necks and the spats around their ankles? And those lace-up boots we women used to wear? Lord have mercy. Remember when Manifest boasted citizens of 20 different nationalities? When you could walk down Main Street and smell Mama Centoni's warm bread instead of dust and wind? Listen to Caruso sing Eyes of the Blue on the Victrola? When we all bought Liberty bonds to support our brave soldiers over there? This brings me to the announcement due to Fred's injury and the fact that his mother is coming in from Springfield to help. I will be taking a sabbatical from Hattie Mae's News Auxiliary. However, some of our younger patrons wanted to know more about our fair town back in the day. So at their suggestion, we are inaugurating the Manifest Herald's Remember When contest. Write up a favorite memory from 1918 in your best handwriting and submit it to the Manifest Herald by Friday, August 23rd. We'll run as many as we can, but the winner will receive a $5 cash prize. I asked Lucy Henry for 10, but read the above. Good luck, and as always, for the who's, what's, why's, when's, where's you can't find in the rest of this nickel and dime paper, turn to Hattie Mae Mackey, reporter about town. Miss Sadie's Divining Parlor, August 11th, 1936. The town was abuzz about the recent mix-up with the newspaper. Billy Clanton loved a good prank and had been happy to deliver the 1918 newspapers that had not made their way to the basement. He said there wasn't anything worth reading in the current papers anyway. Everyone knew that these days there wasn't much news and most of it was bad. So for the time being, we waited to see if anyone would respond to the contest. Hattie Mae was excited about the idea. It was true that we wanted to know more about Manifest back in the day. We just didn't mention even to Hattie Mae that we were particularly interested in who might have had the same handwriting used in the note telling us to leave well enough alone. I stood at the sink in Miss Sadie's tiny kitchen, wrapping an assessment of exotic tea leaves into a warm piece of cloth. I tied a string around the neck of the cloth and dangled the tea bag into a pot of boiling water on her cook stove. Waiting for the tea to brew, I gazed out the window, watching the clouds turn, churn, and roll high above the neat rows of Miss Sadie's garden, that in fact had come to feel like my own. Those seeds of all kinds, carrots, pea, squash, pumpkin, onion, rested just beneath the surface. I had touched each one, planted each one in rows, removed and replaced every bit of dirt just so, in hopes that they might take root in this place. Those seeds, my seeds. Maybe they were wondering, as I was, if this would be the day the rain would come. I looked back at the shed, still locked and dark, at the rich, spicy aroma from the teapot it filled the kitchen. I found myself wondering if this would be the day Miss Sadie would tell what had been brewing inside her. Then I felt her presence behind me. There was less idle talk each time I came. It was as if she had fewer words in her, and the ones she had were the story. I pulled a stool over to her, and she rested herself on it, leaning an elbow on the cabinet. There was plenty I wanted to talk about and ask her. I wanted a conclusion to the story. I wanted to know about the skeleton keys, the last remaining memento from the Lucky Bill cigar box. I wanted to know where Gideon fit into all of this, why he was never mentioned in any of her stories. But I knew from experience that Miss Sadie told the story in her own way and in her own time. I was afraid that there were parts of it still simmering in her, though she might never share. In the silence of Miss Sadie's kitchen, I thought of Gideon. I wondered about his story and why he had retreated so far into himself, where I couldn't reach him. Why had a cut on my leg been such a big deal? I know I'd gotten very sick, but I got better. I remembered the way he looked at me. I had just turned 12, and he said I was growing up into a young lady. True, young ladies were not often found living on the road, traveling from town to town and job to job, but wasn't it more important that we were together? I wondered where Gideon was, and when he would come back, if he would come back. Miss Sadie studied me, trying to read my thoughts, but I kept her out. She had her secrets, and I had mine. Suddenly the kettle whistled, and for the life of me it sounded just like the train whistle blowing in the distance. Miss Sadie's voice was husky as she began. The Santa Fe steamer chugged into town 3 days early. Day of Reckoning, September 28, 1918. The people of Manifest emerged cautiously from their homes and headed towards the depot. When Arthur Devlin stepped off the first passenger car with Lester Burton and the county medical examiner in tow, they knew the quarantine was over. But how? Devlin gestured broadly. Do you see, Dr. Haskell? They're in fine health, wouldn't you say? Dr. Haskell pushed his glasses up on his nose and squinted at the lot before him. Shady, Hadley, Mama Santoni, Miss Larkin, and others. Well, in order to end an official quarantine, I'll need to examine them, and as soon as you pronounce my miners of sound mind and body, I'll expect them back to work within the hour. Devlin made a show of brushing off the unseen dust from his suit. Ah, Eldora, this must have been an awful experience for you. I'm sure you would never have taken part in such a charade if you'd known. Now that it's over, perhaps you would enjoy dining with me this evening in Pittsburgh. Miss Larkin was uncharacteristically flustered by the attention of Mr. Devlin and the suspicious looks of the people in the crowd. Well, Arthur, Now, Eldora, you turned me down years ago, but I'd hoped you'd learn your lesson. I hate to say it, but your husband was a chump, always working on his books and numbers. What kind of a life is that? You know as I do, Eldora, that we are both meant for greater things. Mother! Pearl Ann Larkin cried, stepping off the train. She rushed up, throwing her arms around her mother. Manifest has been all the talk at Kansas University. When I found out they were letting trains back in, I rushed straight home. Devlin was disgruntled by the interruption, but took Miss Larkin's hand and kissed it. I see you are occupied. Perhaps another time. Devlin ordered double shifts for all the mine workers. No exceptions or you'd be fired. Of course, this meant the production of the elixir stopped. Dozens of full bottles remained in the abandoned mine shaft because no one could get away to sell them. Sheriff Dean kept one eye on Shady but kept the other on Jinx, like a cat waiting for a mouse to steal a piece of cheese so he could devour both at once. October 1, the day of reckoning, found a ragtime band holed up at Shady's place. Shady, Jinx, Donald McGregor, and Hadley Gillen, along with Castillo Mentopolosky.